Dr. Elena Carr pulled her heavy coat tighter around her shoulders as the cold wind swept across the frozen wasteland. The planet's surface was a vast expanse of ice and snow, stretching as far as the eye could see. Jagged mountains rose in the distance, their peaks lost in thick clouds. Every step she took crunched in the icy ground, and her breath came out in small, visible puffs. Elena had seen extreme conditions before, but nothing like this. It was lonely, silent, and harsh, a world that seemed to resist life in every way. She was not here by choice. Elena was a field medic with the United Earth Research Corps, sent to monitor environmental conditions on newly discovered planets. The official mission was simple: check temperatures, scan the soil, record radiation levels, and report back. But Elena had always known that simple was never the full story. The sensors she carried in her pack had been picking up strange energy readings for hours, pulses that did not match anything they had ever cataloged. "Elena, come in," came a crackling voice over the radio. It was Captain Rivas, her team leader. "Any luck with the scans?" "Elena here," she replied, her voice firm despite the cold. "Nothing conclusive yet, but the energy spikes are getting stronger about 5 kilometers north. I want to take a look myself." "Be careful," Rivas warned. "The ice there is unstable. You don't want to get trapped." Elena nodded, though he could not see her. She had no intention of letting caution stop her. The readings had an irregular pattern, almost like a heartbeat. She adjusted her goggles and followed the signal, careful to step only on firm ice. The wasteland was deceptive. What looked solid could give way without warning. After an hour of trudging through the snow, Elena noticed a shimmer under the ice. The wind howled, but she could just make out something large buried beneath layers of frost. Her heart raced. This was no natural formation. Slowly she crouched down, brushing away the ice with gloved hands. Her breath caught as she realized what lay before her. It was enormous, a creature unlike anything she had ever seen. Its body was partially encased in ice, but even through the frozen layers she could make out its shape. A massive, elongated form with hints of wings or fins pressed against its sides. Its head was crowned with delicate ridged patterns that glowed faintly in the dim light, as if it carried its own energy source. Elena felt a mixture of awe and fear. She moved closer, careful not to make sudden noises. Her medical training kicked in. Even under the ice, she could see signs of injury. The creature's body had deep cracks along its limbs, as though it had struggled to move and was trapped. There were faint burns, bruises, and frostbite. It was alive but weak. Elena's mind raced. This is incredible," she whispered to herself. She reached for her scanner, pointing it carefully at the creature. The device beeped, confirming life signs, though faint, irregular, and unlike any human or known animal reading. She tried to interpret the data, but the signals were too complex. It was intelligent, she realized, not just alive. The pattern suggested thought, perhaps even emotion. "Elena, report your findings," Rivas's voice came again. "You're scaring me." "What did you find?" Elena hesitated. How could she explain this? It's huge," she said slowly. "Alive, injured, I think it's intelligent." There was silence on the other end. Finally, Rivas replied, voice tight. "You're saying it's an alien life form?" "Yes," Elena said, her eyes never leaving the creature. "And it's hurt. It needs help. You don't understand the risks. Protocol is to contain and report." "Do not interfere." Elena felt a twinge of frustration but also resolve. She had trained for emergencies like this. If she left the creature alone, it would die. That thought was unbearable. Carefully, she removed her pack and began setting up a small warming device, hoping to stabilize it. The alien shivered, a faint vibration running through its body. Elena felt a strange connection at that moment, a pulse that mirrored the faint signals from her scanner. She placed her hand gently against its icy surface, and for the first time the creature responded. Its glowing ridges brightened slightly and a low hum resonated from its body. Elena pulled back in surprise. The hum was almost musical, a sound that seemed to communicate fear and recognition at the same time. Her mind raced to interpret it. Was it trying to ask for help, or warning her to stay away? She decided to stay. Hours passed as she worked slowly, clearing ice and applying basic first aid measures she could improvise with her gear. The cold was brutal, and her hands went numb despite gloves, but she refused to leave. The creature's breathing, or whatever served as its respiratory system, remained weak and uneven. By nightfall, the storm had grown worse. Wind shredded the landscape and snow blinded her at times. Yet the alien remained alive, fragile but fighting. Helena found herself speaking to it softly, almost instinctively. "You're going to be okay," she said. "I won't let you die." It responded with a subtle wave through the air, a ripple of light along its body, faint but deliberate. Helena felt tears prick her eyes. She had never expected to feel such connection to a being so different from herself. Time lost meaning. Hours melted into the darkness and the storm raged around them. Yet in that frozen wasteland in the middle of nowhere, a human medic and an alien queen formed a fragile bond. Neither fully understood the other, but both recognized the will to survive. Helena knew the situation was dangerous. She could not stay forever. But for the first time in her career, she felt that medicine, compassion, and courage could cross the boundaries of species. She had made a choice. She would do everything in her power to save this creature, even if it meant breaking protocol. And somewhere deep inside the alien, a faint, hopeful resonance stirred in response, a signal of life, and perhaps of trust. The storm had passed by morning, leaving the frozen wasteland eerily calm. Elena Carr's cheeks were raw from the cold and her coat was stiff with ice. Yet as she looked down at the alien queen, her heart lifted slightly. The creature's breathing was steadier, and the faint glow of its ridges pulsed more evenly. It was alive, and that alone felt like a small miracle. Elena had spent the night observing it, carefully noting its movements. She realized it was not only alive but highly intelligent. Every subtle shift in its body, every change in light and vibration seemed purposeful. Unlike animals she had treated before, this creature was aware, perhaps even understanding that she meant no harm. She decided it was time to try and communicate more directly. Elena knew she could not speak its language, if it even had one, but she could use gestures, touch, and gentle sounds. Slowly, she extended a gloved hand toward the creature. The alien hesitated, its glowing ridges dimming for a moment as if assessing her intent. Then, with a faint ripple of its body, it allowed her to come closer. "Easy," she whispered, her voice soft and calm. "I'm not going to hurt you." The alien made a low hum, almost musical, which resonated through the ice. Elena adjusted her scanner, trying to measure the sound. The patterns were complex, far beyond anything she had recorded from known life forms. It was as if the alien was sharing emotions through vibrations and light, expressing fear, curiosity, and perhaps something else, hope. Over the next several hours, Elena worked carefully to remove more ice from around the queen's limbs. She applied a warming gel she had developed for extreme cold injuries in humans, hoping it might have some effect. She had no idea if it would help, but the creature seemed to respond positively, its glow growing brighter when the warmth reached its body. While she worked, Elena spoke quietly, narrating her actions, hoping her voice could be recognized as safe. "I'm cleaning your injuries. It might sting, but it will help you." The alien reacted in a subtle way, shifting its body closer to her hand. Elena's heart pounded. It was the first sign of trust. She had expected fear, aggression, or indifference, but this was something else. There was intelligence behind that movement, a willingness to let her help. She took a moment to study the creature's body more closely. Its skin was semi-translucent in places, revealing a network of veins and pulses that seemed to carry energy rather than blood. The ridges along its head and back glowed in patterns that changed with each subtle movement. Its eyes, or what appeared to be its eyes, were large and multifaceted, reflecting light in shades of blue and green. Elena realized she was looking at a life form that was both alien and majestic, unlike anything recorded in human history. Elena's thoughts were interrupted by a sudden tremor in the ground. A shard of ice nearby cracked and fell. The queen reacted instantly, pulling back slightly, and the glow along its ridges flickered with tension. Elena froze as well. For the first time, she felt the full weight of the environment's danger. The wasteland was not just cold and lonely, it was unpredictable. "Shh, it's okay," she whispered. Slowly, she extended her hand again, trying to reassure the alien. This time it responded by gently moving a limb toward her, a gesture that seemed almost human in its tenderness. Elena smiled, feeling a strange warmth in her chest, despite the freezing temperature. She realized that communication did not need words. Through touch, light, and vibration, a connection was forming. By midday, Elena had managed to remove most of the ice from the alien queen's body, She set up a small shelter using emergency blankets and reflective panels from her equipment, creating a temporary area to shield the creature from the wind. The alien remained mostly still, conserving energy, but occasionally it shifted slightly closer to the warmth she provided. Elena carefully monitored its vital signs. The Queen's energy levels were extremely low, and she knew it could not survive much longer without proper nutrition and medical care. She rummaged through her pack and found nutrient gels used for astronauts. Tentatively, she offered a small sample. The alien initially recoiled but then extended a delicate appendage toward the gel. It tasted it slowly, and after a moment she saw a faint pulse of light ripple through its body, a sign it had accepted the food. Elena's heart leapt. Small gestures like this were victories in a situation that had seemed hopeless hours before. She made detailed notes in her tablet, documenting each reaction, every shift in light, every vibration. These records could be invaluable to scientists back on Earth, but at that moment, they were also her guide to understanding the creature. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, Elena realized that the alien was starting to respond to her presence in more subtle ways. When she moved, it followed her movements with its own, and when she rested her hand near its glowing ridges, it pulsed in patterns that seemed like acknowledgement. There was a rhythm forming between them, a silent mutual recognition that they were not alone in this frozen world. Elena paused to catch her breath. She looked around at the vast, empty landscape, feeling the weight of isolation. No one else could see what she saw. No one else could understand the bond that was forming. Yet in that moment, she felt a sense of purpose stronger than any fear. She had discovered something extraordinary, something beyond science and protocol. She had found life, and it had found her. Night fell quickly in the wasteland, bringing long shadows and a sky full of distant stars. Elena built a small fire in a safe, contained area, careful not to disturb the Queen. The alien remained mostly still, but its glow shifted slowly, almost as if it were observing the dancing flames. Elena felt a sense of shared wonder. They were two very different beings, yet both alive, both aware, both alone together in the cold. As she settled down for the night, Elena spoke softly to the alien. "You're safe now. I'll stay with you. I won't let anything happen to you." A soft vibration responded from the Queen, gentle and slow. It was not a language, not in the human sense, but it was a signal, a sign of trust. Elena smiled, feeling a bond forming that she could not fully explain. In this alien presence, she found something she had never expected: companionship, connection, and hope. The night stretched long, and the cold pressed in, but for the first time, Elena did not feel entirely alone. Somewhere beneath the ice, the alien Queen rested, fragile but alive, and together they waited for what the next day might bring. The frozen wasteland had grown even colder by the second day. Winds howled across the ice, making Elena Core shiver despite her heavy coat and layers. Snow swirled in long, twisting drifts, covering the ground with sharp ridges and hidden crevices. Every step was a careful choice. One wrong move could send her plunging into a hidden gap in the ice. Yet she focused only on the alien Queen before her. The creature had grown slightly stronger since the previous day. Its breathing was steadier, and its glow pulsed with a faint rhythm that seemed to signal awareness and energy. But Elena knew its strength was fragile. Without proper warmth, nourishment, and protection, it could easily succumb to the harsh conditions of the planet. Elena set up a small tent using reflective panels from her equipment. Inside, she laid down blankets and warming devices, creating a sheltered area for the alien Queen. The creature seemed hesitant at first, lingering at the edge of the warmth, but eventually it inched closer, allowing the heat to reach its frost-covered body. Elena could feel the tension in its posture slowly easing, like a cord being gently untangled. "I know this isn't easy," Elena said softly, "but you're going to make it. I promise." She examined its injuries carefully. Frost had caused deep cracks along the creature's limbs, and there were open sores that pulsed with weak energy. Her human treatments could only go so far, but she did what she could, cleaning wounds with sterile wipes, applying a warming gel, and using her own hands to support its body during careful movements. As she worked, she noticed a faint communication from the Queen. Its glowing ridges shifted in patterns that felt almost deliberate. There were vibrations in the air that Elena could sense through her equipment. She realized that this was more than a simple reaction to touch. The alien was responding, trying to communicate something beyond fear or pain. Elena adjusted her approach, speaking softly, touching gently, and giving space when needed. Slowly, the alien began to mimic some of her movements. When she reached out a hand, it lifted a limb slightly. When she leaned closer, it tilted its head. It was learning to trust her, or at least to understand that she meant no harm. The day passed slowly. Elena took small breaks to check her supplies, eat minimal rations, and rest, but her attention never left the alien. The wind outside grew stronger, rattling the shelter and whipping snow against the walls. She realized they could not survive outside for much longer. The storm was relentless and unpredictable. Late in the afternoon, she tried another risky step. Using nutrient gels from her pack, she offered some to the queen. At first it recoiled, unsure of the unfamiliar substance. Elena waited patiently, allowing it time to assess and approach. Finally, the alien extended a delicate appendage and touched the gel. Slowly, it consumed a small portion, and immediately a pulse of light ran along its body. It was subtle, but Elena recognized it as a sign of relief, perhaps even gratitude. She smiled, feeling a deep connection forming. "Good," she whispered. "See? You can trust me." Hours later, the storm outside worsened. Snow fell thickly and the wind howled like a living thing. Elena realized she could not leave the alien unattended. She had to stay with it through the night. Using extra blankets, she created a protective cocoon around the creature. But she also kept a small distance, respecting its space while monitoring it closely. As darkness fell, she noticed that the queen's glow was stronger than before, flickering in patterns that seemed rhythmic, almost musical. Elena watched carefully. She began to see subtle changes, tiny pulses that responded to her presence. When she reached out a hand, the glow brightened slightly. When she moved away, it dimmed. It was the first time she felt certain that the alien was aware of her in a conscious way, recognizing her as more than just an obstacle or a threat. It was aware that she was helping it survive. Exhausted, Elena leaned back on her pack and watched the creature. It was still fragile, but she felt a spark of hope. They were two very different beings, surviving together in a harsh world that wanted to destroy them both, and yet they were not alone anymore. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the ice outside. Elena froze. The queen's body tensed instantly, and its glow flared in sharp, rapid pulses. Something had shifted in the ice nearby. A large sheet had broken, sending jagged pieces sliding and crashing against each other. The alien moved instinctively to shield itself, curling slightly, and Elena rushed to stay near it. "You're okay," she said, her voice firm but calm. "It's just the ice. Nothing will happen to you." For several minutes, the storm inside the shelter and the ice outside were the only sounds. Slowly, the alien relaxed, though its glow continued to flicker with tension. Elena realized how deeply aware it was of danger, how alert and sensitive its senses were. That night, Elena felt a strange, quiet bond with the alien. They were both survivors, sharing warmth, energy, and an understanding that transcended words. She whispered again, "We'll get through this, together." The creature responded with a soft, rhythmic pulse, almost like a heartbeat. She fell asleep sitting upright, leaning slightly against the protective tent, her eyes half closed but alert. Every few hours she stirred to check on the alien, making sure it was still breathing, still alive, still fighting. The cold outside was relentless, but inside the small cocoon of warmth, life persisted. By morning, a small miracle had occurred. The queen had moved slightly on its own, stretching its limbs and shifting closer to the warmth. Its glow was steadier, more consistent. Elena felt a surge of hope. They had survived the night. It was the first real test, and they had passed. Elena knew the journey was far from over. The alien was still weak, and the planet was still dangerous. But she had learned something vital. Patience, care, and understanding could bridge the gap between species. The queen had begun to trust her, and in return she had learned to trust its instincts, its intelligence, and its will to live. For the first time, she allowed herself a small smile. The frozen wasteland was still harsh and unrelenting, but she and the alien queen were no longer alone. Together, they would face whatever came next, step by step, pulse by pulse, in the silent, icy world that had almost claimed them both. The next morning, the frozen wasteland seemed calmer, though the wind still cut sharply across the plains. Dr. Elena Kaur huddled beside the alien queen, watching its glow pulse steadily. It was stronger than yesterday, but still weak. The creature had moved closer to her warmth, almost as if it had accepted her presence fully. For the first time, Elena allowed herself to hope that they could survive this ordeal together. Her thoughts were interrupted by the faint hum of machinery in the distance. Her team was coming. Relief surged through her chest, but it was quickly mixed with anxiety. She had no idea how the alien would react to other humans. The Queen had already shown signs of fear and caution, and she feared that sudden appearances could trigger panic or aggression. "Stay calm," she whispered, placing a hand gently on the alien's side. "They're here to help, not hurt." The sound of snowmobiles and research vehicles grew louder. Elena stepped out cautiously to signal them, waving her arm. Within moments, Captain Rivas and the rest of the team arrived, their faces a mixture of concern and astonishment. "Elena," Rivas shouted, rushing toward her. "We were worried sick. What's going on?" She led them carefully toward the Queen, who watched every movement. Its glow pulsed faster, a clear sign of tension. Elena raised her hand, signaling them to stop. "Slowly," she said. "It's alive. And intelligent. We need to be careful." The team froze, looking at the enormous creature partially covered in ice and blankets. Some gasped. Others instinctively stepped back. The Queen's eyes, or what Elena assumed were eyes, tracked each movement, its glowing ridges flickering in response to their presence. Elena explained what had happened over the past 2 days. She described the injuries, the cold, and the gradual trust that had formed between them. Captain Rivas listened closely, his initial shock giving way to a cautious understanding. "We'll need to contain it for transport," he said finally. "But we can't risk harming it." Elena nodded. "We have to respect it. It's sentient. If it feels threatened, it might fight. We need to move slowly, carefully, and communicate as best we can." The team set up a temporary barrier of reflective panels and warming devices to create a protected corridor from the Queen's shelter to the transport vehicle. Elena stayed close, speaking softly to the alien, her words calm and steady. The creature responded with subtle pulses of light, its body shifting slightly as if acknowledging her instructions. Step by step, they guided the Queen toward the vehicle. Every movement had to be deliberate. Any sudden noise or motion could trigger panic. Elena's heart pounded with every step. She whispered encouragement to the Queen, her voice steady even as her hands shook from cold and fear. Finally, the alien reached the transport ramp. For a tense moment it hesitated, glowing brightly in a mixture of fear and caution. Elena stepped forward, placing a hand gently on its side. "It's okay. You're safe now. We're with you." Slowly, the Queen allowed the team to guide it into the vehicle. Once inside, it curled slightly, resting while still glowing faintly. Elena stayed close, monitoring its vital signs and continuing to speak softly. As the transport began moving, Elena noticed something unusual. The Queen's body seemed to be protecting a small hidden area near its abdomen. It shifted slightly whenever she approached, a subtle warning to stay back. Her curiosity grew, but she did not press. Whatever it was guarding, it was important to the alien. Inside the secure habitat at the research facility, the Queen was placed in a large, climate-controlled enclosure. Scientists and medical experts observed from a safe distance, taking notes and measuring its vital signs. Elena explained everything she had learned, the glow patterns, the vibrations, the reactions to touch and warmth. For hours, the Queen remained mostly still, conserving energy. But Elena could see subtle movements indicating awareness. Its ridges flickered in patterns that seemed to mirror her own gestures, almost as if it recognized her specifically among the humans. Then, the moment of revelation came. Elena noticed a faint glowing pulse emanating from the area the Queen had been guarding during transport. She carefully adjusted her scanner and realized what it was. An egg, delicate and protected, carrying the potential for new life. The Queen had been hiding it, ensuring its safety even while weak and injured. Elena's heart swelled with awe. This was not just an alien queen. It was a mother, determined to protect her offspring at all costs. She realized the depth of its intelligence and the strength of its instincts. This creature had survived alone in a hostile world, fought through injury and exhaustion, and still prioritized the life of another. Captain Rivas and the team gathered around Elena as she explained the discovery. "We need to ensure both the Queen and her offspring survive," she said. "We can't just study her as a specimen. She's sentient. She has a family to protect. The team agreed, and protocols were adjusted to prioritize the alien's well-being. Warmth, nutrition, and quiet were provided, and Elena stayed by the Queen's side, offering comfort and reassurance. Slowly, the creature began to respond more openly. Its glow shifted in gentle waves, its movements more fluid, and it occasionally allowed Elena to touch it with less hesitation. Days passed, and the Queen's strength continued to return. The bond between her and Elena deepened. They no longer needed words. Subtle gestures, light patterns, and vibrations were enough. Elena realized that the Queen understood her on a level beyond human language, and she understood the Queen in return. One evening, as the facility lights dimmed, Elena placed her hand near the Queen's side. The glow shifted, wrapping around her hand in a warm pulse. It was a silent gesture of recognition and gratitude. Elena smiled, realizing that they had formed a connection that would last a lifetime. For the first time since the discovery, Elena felt that they had achieved something extraordinary. They had survived the frozen wasteland, built trust across species, and discovered the hidden miracle of life within the alien Queen. She knew the journey was far from over, but hope now guided her steps. In the quiet of the habitat, the Queen rested beside her hidden offspring, protected and nurtured. Elena watched, understanding that her role had shifted from rescuer to guardian and witness. This was more than science. It was compassion, respect, and a bridge between worlds. The story of the alien Queen was only beginning, but for Elena the most important lesson was clear. Life, in any form, deserved care, protection, and understanding. In the vast emptiness of a frozen world, a fragile bond had been formed, one that would shape the future for both species in ways they could not yet imagine. Weeks passed since Dr. Elena Kaur had first discovered the alien Queen in the frozen wasteland. The research facility had become a quiet sanctuary for the creature, a place where warmth, nourishment, and safety were always present. Elena had remained close, acting as both medic and companion. Every day she watched the Queen grow stronger, her glow more vibrant and her movements more purposeful. The alien was no longer fragile. She was a survivor reclaiming her strength. Elena often reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From the moment she had found the Queen beneath the ice, alone and struggling, she had faced fear, doubt, and danger. Yet step by step she had built trust, learned to communicate without words, and discovered a bond that transcended species. The Queen had shown her something rare and precious: resilience, intelligence, and the power of care. The most remarkable discovery remained the Queen's hidden offspring. A small, delicate egg rested in a protected area of the habitat, carefully monitored for temperature and safety. Elena had watched over it as meticulously as she had the Queen, and she felt a quiet sense of wonder each time she saw it. The Queen, too, seemed to understand the importance of this life. Her attention often returned to the egg, her glow pulsing gently as if to reassure it that she was near. One morning, the Queen made a movement that startled everyone. She carefully shifted closer to the egg, then extended a delicate appendage to touch it lightly. The egg vibrated slightly in response, and a faint glow emanated from within. Scientists recorded the interaction in amazement. This was no ordinary alien. This was a being capable of emotion, care, and protective instinct. Elena stepped closer, speaking softly to the Queen. "You're doing wonderfully," she whispered. "They will be safe because of you." The Queen's glow responded, brighter and more rhythmic this time. Elena realized it was acknowledging her words, not in understanding but in recognition. They shared a silent communication, a mutual respect and awareness that needed no language. As days turned into weeks, the Queen adapted to her new environment. She learned to navigate the habitat, explore safely, and interact with the limited technology present. She became calm and composed, yet her intelligence and curiosity were always evident. Elena sometimes caught her observing the humans with what felt like deep thought, as though analyzing every action and learning from it. Elena continued her work, but her role had changed. She was no longer just a medic. She had become a guardian, a bridge between worlds. She had learned patience, empathy, and the value of trust that could be built slowly, step by step. She saw the Queen not as a subject for study, but as a living, thinking being who deserved dignity and respect. One afternoon, a small group of scientists and ethicists arrived from Earth to observe and advise on the Queen's care. They had prepared for an alien of unknown behavior, expecting fear or aggression, but the Queen remained calm and observant. Elena guided the team, explaining her experiences, the Queen's patterns, and the delicate communication they had developed. "This creature is sentient," Elena explained. "It feels, it understands, and it protects its young. We must treat it not as a specimen, but as a life with rights, instincts, and intelligence." The team listened, taking notes and adjusting their approach. They began to understand that Elena's first-hand experience was invaluable. Data alone could not convey the Queen's complexity. Observation, empathy, and trust were the keys to understanding her. As the Queen continued to grow stronger, the egg showed signs of development. Elena and the scientists watched carefully, ensuring optimal conditions. Every movement of the Queen near the egg was a lesson in care, instinct, and patience. They began to see that she had not only survived alone, but had the wisdom to protect her next generation in a completely foreign environment. One quiet evening, as the facility lights dimmed and the hum of machines slowed, Elena sat beside the Queen. The creature's glow was steady, rhythmic, and peaceful. The Queen moved slightly closer, pressing her body gently against the blankets covering the egg. Elena reached out her hand, resting it lightly on the Queen's side. The glow shifted warmly around her hand. Elena felt a deep sense of connection, a bond that could never be broken. This alien, so different from humans in form and thought, had trusted her, accepted her care, and shared a silent understanding of life and survival. Elena realized something important. This was more than a scientific achievement. It was a moment that would shape the way humans viewed life beyond their world. Compassion, understanding, and respect had bridged a gap that words could never describe. The Queen's egg continued to develop, and soon the first signs of movement appeared. A soft glow within the shell, a tiny pulse of life, confirmed that the next generation would survive. Elena's heart swelled with hope and pride. They had found a fragile life in the most hostile place imaginable, and had nurtured it to the brink of new beginnings. Months passed, and the Queen fully regained her strength. She moved gracefully around the habitat, attentive to her offspring and aware of the humans caring for her. Elena watched from a distance, letting the Queen take the lead, offering help only when needed. The bond they shared had evolved into a mutual trust, quiet and steady, unspoken but profound. Eventually, Elena prepared a detailed report for the United Earth Research Corps, documenting every step of the rescue, care, and observations. But she knew the true story could not be captured fully in words. The connection, the trust, the shared struggle for survival, these were experiences beyond documentation. As she looked at the Queen and her egg, now thriving under careful observation, Elena understood the meaning of her journey. Life, no matter how different, deserved care and respect. Trust and compassion could form bridges where fear and misunderstanding often ruled. And even in the coldest, most hostile places, hope could survive, pulsing quietly like the glow of a hidden heart. Elena left the habitat briefly, stepping outside into the icy landscape she had once feared. She breathed in the cold air, thinking of the Queen waiting inside. She knew their lives had been forever changed. She had saved a life, discovered a miracle, and learned a lesson that transcended species. And somewhere in the warmth of the habitat, the alien Queen rested beside her offspring, glowing softly, alive and protected. Elena knew that she had played a part in something extraordinary. A life that might have ended in the frozen wasteland was now thriving, and the bond between human and alien had created a legacy of hope, trust, and compassion. It was a story that would be remembered not for its danger, nor its rarity, but for the simple truth it represented. That life, in any form, deserves care, understanding, and respect. In the vast emptiness of the frozen world, a human and an alien Queen had proven that survival, connection, and love could transcend every boundary. And in that quiet moment, with the glow of new life shimmering softly, Elena smiled, knowing she had witnessed something truly extraordinary. A beginning, not just for the alien Queen and her offspring, but for humanity's understanding of the universe and the fragile, beautiful bonds that make it whole.